Hey everyone, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Literature Show. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Cillian McMahey for my second ever in-person podcast. So Cillian, first of all, welcome to the Lifestyle Literature Show. Good to have you here, my man.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Cillian, for all of my listeners out there, share something about yourself that most people do not know. What a way to start the show, bro.
I suppose. Let's see. I'm a twin.
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
yeah. I don't think a lot of people know that about me. I'm a twin, and he is in the army, and I do coaching. So we're very opposite, but we're also best mates. So
Oh, deadly.
yeah,
Deadly.
yeah.
Okay.
Really interesting.
You're a twin. Interesting, interesting. And tell me this, okay, share a bit about yourself, about your backstory, how you actually got into fitness in the first place.
Yeah, for me, I suppose it started like when I was a kid. We would have always been quite active, very sporting. My parents as well, like my mum, she does a lot of life coaching, reflexology, and things like that. So, um, I think that's where it initially probably came from. That kind of background environment, being at home, it was always implemented in the home setting. So, always took an interest in sport, and then went on to do it in college. Went to Sligo IT. Initially wanted to actually do physiotherapy.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and just didn't get the points. So I was like, right, go to IT Sligo. They do a kind of an entry level course to
Yes.
get in, and then went down a different path and really took an interest in nutrition and got my degree with University of Ulster. And got a master's in sport nutrition and took it from there. Really.
Just talk from there. Brilliant. And so what's your degree in nutrition? Was your goal to become a registered dietitian, or did you just know you wanted to do something in this field without?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny thing. My course was a level 7 for
Yeah.
health science, and I was like, I want to get a level 8.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so in the nutrition course, they could get me straight into the final year, and that coupled with having a really like big passion with nutrition, I was like, that makes the most sense, and it was allowing me to, so I was doing working on the gym floor as well at the same time, so I was trying to do that down in Sligo, was traveling up to Derry to do the nutrition course full time, and it was just a year of chaos, but
Wow,
yeah.
man, I can relate. I worked two jobs. I used to be a primary school teacher, taught during the day, PT during the evening. But you know what? A lot of people can relate to this in some way. Maybe not in the fitness industry where they're working long hours, stressful, they're bringing their work home with them. What advice would you give to anyone who's in that bracket? Because I'm sure your days were, what, 14 to 16 hours at times there.
It's chaotic. Yeah, I think like two things. If you really want to get out of the current situation and become that new version of yourself or work towards that goal, you have to put in the work in hours, you have to put in the commitment in the work because that's what's going to get you from A to B. But the biggest thing for me, I just got an Excel sheet and I had it from like 6 in the morning till 11 at night in half-hour increments, and they just filled. I just filled all the boxes with what I had to do exactly.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
At that age, that's very, very detailed. It's
Yeah.
something I started doing recently, but keeping a time diary, in what way then did that help you out?
It was just I knew what like everything where everything was meant to be at what time,
Yeah.
and it just helped me to plan everything in because it was, you know, you obviously had to study for college, you had to
Yes.
work, you had clients,
Yeah.
programming, and then I had to make time for friends and family and my other half. So it was just it allowed me to schedule it all in, and I literally treated everything like an appointment. But it was just that organization, and like I'm very kind of driven in that. I'm very data orientated,
Love it, man.
you know, so it
Yeah.
just made sense. It kept the overwhelm at bay, which
Yes,
was very important for me.
100%.
And I just knew, okay, that's the task I had to do at that time, and then that's the task I had to do at that time, and so on.
Deadly. Yeah. It's an eye opener when you do like we always speak as coaches about doing food diets, which are so important, but a time diet. God, did I spend that amount of time scrolling or where did the day go? But it's actually a good way. What did you learn from doing a time diary? Was there any area you were over or under prioritizing as a result?
I think with the time diary, you learn that you have a lot more hours.
Yeah.
You know? So I think like when I actually opened my eyes to it, because and I do this with all my clients, I tell them to do some sort of a diary out or schedule and put in the non-negotiables like work or, you know, with the kids or to pick them up or whatever it may be. The non-negotiables, they have to go in first. And then what you'll find is that there's actually pockets of time that you're just allocating to, let's say, Netflix or, you know, going on your phone. And they're the little pocket of time which I'll encourage my clients to say, hey, get out for a 20-minute walk, or why don't you prep up some of the veg for the next 2 or 3 days? And, it was just them little time pockets is what I call them that compounded into great results.
100%, 100%. So how did you get out of the rat race of just being in college while also coaching, while also minding your own mental health? What was that transition like for
I learned the hard way. So what happened was there was a lot of stress, obviously, and I was just
you?
very focused on trying to get everything sorted. And I ended up putting on, I would have been averaging around maybe 75 kilo.
Yeah.
And I tipped the scales up to 96 kilo.
Over what period of time?
Over like an 8 or 9 month period. It was
Yeah.
that final year in college.
Yeah.
And I just got so stressed. Sleep was just really bad. Heart rate was through the roof, blood pressure was through the roof. And then I got COVID and had a load of complications from it afterwards. So with a load of issues, say with my potential issues with my kidney, and it was all okay in the end. But I was fully convinced that it was my immune system was so low from all that stress.
Wow.
Yeah, that it just took me such a long period of time to actually recover from everything, and that was the tipping point for me where I was like, right, thanks for everything.
Stress is a silent killer, man.
Oh.
It's the one that I'm definitely. Have you read Peter Attia's book out there?
No.
He speaks about stress as well, and it's just an eye opener. It's like you can be training 5 times a week in the gym, counting the calories, my fitness pal, everything on point. But if you're chronically stressed continuously, like some elements of stress that we know is good, and you go do a workout, that's stressful in the body, but you recover and you adapt. But when it's continuous and when you're never like just getting out of that fight or flight, that can promote the storage of visceral fat, which is that stubborn fat that we find hard to get rid of, and it's just powerful.
Yeah.
What are some ways in Cillian for you that you use to reduce stress? Because I think stress is something a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. My first one is actually, I kind of like categorize into things, but for me, I have like a 6-1 method is kind of how I approach it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so Monday to Saturday is my 6 days where I'm pretty much on the ball, working quite hard towards my personal goals, the business goals, whatever it may be, and then my Sunday is my R&R, my rest and recovery. So I take the day out to do things I like to do, things I like to enjoy, and I just try to switch off with that regard, and maybe in the evening time do a little bit of journaling, a little bit of planning, because planning helps me to feel at bay and say, okay, I know what I need to do, so there's no real overwhelm. So that's one method. Another method for me is finding a hobby that allows me to completely switch off. Yeah, so. And it's not the gym. It's not the gym. Believe it or not. For me, it was actually surfing.
Wow.
Yeah, surfing. So I would have been living in Sligo for years prior to the move over here, and obviously great waves out to Sligo. So
yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. So surfing was a big one, and I could sit out there no matter what weather it was, whether it was a great surfer swell or not, and just tune out. It was great.
Absolutely. I think regardless with stress, there's a lot of power in just being outside in nature.
So grounding.
It's so in the water, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The great thing about, like, as difficult and all as it is, what it teaches you is just being present.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about anything else when you're in freaking such sea cold water and you're at -3, -4. So that's really interesting. But go back to the stress, Cillian, because you obviously gained, a decent amount of weight over a relatively short period of time. I assume was food used as some element of a coping mechanism there and just a bit of a stress eater?
It wasn't. I wasn't actually a stress eater. My problem was I was a convenient eater.
Okay.
I was eating on the go, and it was just getting to the point where I was like, right, throw an oven pizza into the oven, and then in terms of my own personal goals, I was like, oh, do I want to like go on a gaining phase or whatever? And then I was just like, I'm justifying it as an excuse, so it wasn't necessarily like I wouldn't necessarily stress eating as such, although that is a big
that was an element of it.
Yeah, for sure. It was more just throw whatever's in the fridge and buy all the oven-based foods because
you
just throw it into the oven, So that was where a lot of it came about as such.
How did you get out of that cycle?
It was sitting in the doctor's office, and like we were going through these issues with my kidney at the time and trying to figure out what was the issue. And she took my blood pressure, and it was like 150 over 110 or something ridiculous. Like, yeah. And she was like, Cillian, we need to put like,
Are you okay?
yeah.
Yeah,
And I had to convince her not to let me walk out with a 24-hour monitor.
yeah,
And that's when I just sat there and I was thinking, at the time I was just 24, I think, and I was like, you're 24 years of age. You have to go to all these appointments,
Yeah.
get all these scans, your blood pressure through the roof.
yeah.
You're 24, not 77,
Sure.
and that was that
Yeah.
realization for me.
Well, why do we? Because I think everyone's the same. Everyone comes to a point where they have that aha moment, that epiphany moment that they need to change. But for some reason, the way we're wired, we always seem to like leave it until the utmost, the one a bad or a negative outcome happens when we just realize, okay, I gotta change.
Yeah, for sure.
Why were you not? And this just being more so curious than anything else. How come you weren't more proactive in your?
What do you mean now being proactive as in
Potentially taking action that bit early.
that bit early? I think it was, I got so engulfed and so focused on the end goal.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
for me, that was to graduate and get the business up
Gotcha.
and running.
Yeah.
So I think I just got so absorbed in it that nothing else matters.
Yes.
Tunnel
Gotcha. Tunnel vision. Yeah. To be fair, balance. There's periods of life where we go through balance, but sometimes when you want to do something that is unconventional, you've got to be in balance.
Yeah, sure.
Even with fat loss.
Yes, big time.
So, what are your thoughts on just a balanced approach versus maybe a more rigid approach, Cillian?
It'll ultimately I'll always say it'll ultimately depend on the client, but I always say, well, something has to give.
Yeah.
You can have a balanced approach by all means, keep it sustainable, but there has to be some level of discipline and consistency there. And I think that there's a great quote where it's, tough times create hard people create good times, and good times create soft people, and soft people create hard people. And it's always this cycle. And I think right now we're in a generation with social media that we've created very good, easily accessible times, which has created a lot of soft people.
Convenience.
Convenience, yeah. And I think you probably know it as well, if you look through social media, there's this sort of message where people are like, you can eat anything, you can have this, you can do that, still drop 10 pounds of body fat or 20 pounds of body fat. And I get it. It's a good introduction. It catches people's attention, and then they talk about the topic at hand and give that great. But it's also now justifying to a lot of people out there that, hey, I can have this, I can have that, I can go out every weekend, and I'm going to expect to drop 10 pounds or 3 pounds a week, or
Yeah.
and I think that's the problem that we have at the moment, is trying to show people that you do have to put a little bit more work into it. There's going to be times where you might have to say no to the drinks out or no to that meal out. Of course, it has to be balanced for sure, but there has to be a little bit of discipline there.
And God forbid, some people, they're so balanced the wrong way that God forbid you try to go a bit more the other way and actually freaking be a bit more sustainable. I agree, man. And the hard thing with this is, particularly when there's alcohol involved, as you know yourself, it's very hard to get away with a meal out with some alcohol. Yeah, and keeping that, like someone with 2,000 calorie diet, God, you're not going to be having much alcohol or much food to enjoy that event. I think people underestimate. What are your thoughts on this? The amount of calories actually that you could potentially consume in a night out and the next day.
Yeah, for sure. And do you know what the interesting thing is? And I was actually thinking about this the other day. People think that the drinks are the actual issue themselves. So I'll have people come to me and say, oh, we went out for food and I got starter mains and a dessert, but I only had 2 drinks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if you had, say, a gin and a spritzer or a gin and tonic, 80 to 100 calories.
Yeah.
2 drinks is 200 calories. One dessert, a big slice of cake, could be up on 800 calories. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's a game changer.
And people think because they only had the 2 drinks that they've managed the night out really well. And I'm like, no, you need to look at the food a little bit more
Yeah.
and hone in on
Yeah.
that. I'd probably rather someone have 4 or 5 drinks, but skip a starter or share a starter and get their mains and not get the dessert, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's a hard one too, though, because I don't drink that often. When you do, it is a case, man, that it fuels your appetite. And then you're line of thought as well.
Yeah.
You just start thinking stupid shit that you normally don't think about, and it can drive you to bad decisions. So I think an important point, or something that really helped me, just make a decision before that I'm not going to get a takeaway. Yeah. Gonna have my drink, let the night out be the night out. God, don't let it spit over the next day. We've all been there Friday morning after a couple of drinks the next day, and you actually do more damage the following day than the night off.
Sure, sure. An interesting thing with that is I always tell my clients, set yourself standards.
Yeah.
Standards that your future better self will uphold it. And a standard I always tell them to do is never miss twice. So if you go out and you have the drink or you have the takeaway and you completely do the dog on it, don't do it the next day. Yeah. Never miss twice.
Deadly.
You know.
Deadly. So yeah, absolutely. Have you read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Something like, because I know his analogy is don't break the chain, but it's so true. It is so true. It's okay for something to happen once, but try not to let it happen twice, because a lot of this with fitness, I feel, is built on momentum. And when you have the momentum, when you go in the right direction, it's easier to keep going. But then when you break the chain, as you said, just don't let that compel.
Sure. And that's the thing. And James Clear talks about that in that book, is that to form a habit, you need to do something more than twice.
Yeah.
And the body won't recognize what a good or bad habit is.
Sure.
You know, so if you go and you drink twice or you eat out 2 or 3 times, you're starting to form the habit, albeit good or bad. So it's a case of don't let it happen twice, because then you're not going to let the habit form. So that's kind of the thought process behind it there.
So what are some of the ways then that you've had to coach your clients to build in better habits?
We're all about the 1%ers, the compound effect. Have you read that book?
Absolutely. I haven't read the book, but I'm aware of the dynamic with it.
For sure. So Darren Hardy talks all about the 1%ers and how they compound into great results. And again, you look at like this whole fat loss analogy at the moment, say with social media and stuff. People are being promised abs and the best body in under 12 weeks. And they mightn't even have, the simplest habits in place of, hey, then that's how you track your nutrition, or this is how you weigh out foods. So instead of trying to get from A to Z in just one step, focus on getting from A to B, B to C, C to D, and so on and so on. And if you can set out simple targets, simple habits, and I always say to people, make them like overly achievable, overly realistic, if your target, if you're sitting at 4,000 steps and your target is to get the magic 10K, right? I tell someone, okay, instead of saying I'm going to go from 4,000 to 10,000 by tomorrow, go from 4,000 to 4,500. And if you hit that, go to 5.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. And that compounds then,
Absolutely. So what would you say then? I really like that effect, Cillian. What would you say are some daily non-negotiable habits that, most people listen to this podcast, probably work 40 hours a week, want to be fitter, want to be leaner, want to be healthier, but they don't want to step up on stage? What would you say are some daily habits that everyone, I don't like using the word should, but if you could recommend, what would they be?
For me, there's 3 big ones that I'll always tell people to look at. The first one is include a source of protein and a piece of fruit or a piece of veg with every single day. Like that has to be, and if someone turns around and says, I don't like veg, what are you, 2 years late?
Yeah.
Like the benefits,
yeah.
The benefits outweigh the negatives, so that's the first one for me, is you need to get your diet on point.
Yeah.
Protein, bit of fruit and veg every 3 to 4 hours. Get that regularly, and that's going to solve a lot of your issues without even looking at it, the next thing, what I just say to people is get up a little bit more throughout the day. For a lot of us, like what we're doing right now is we sit like this for 6, 7, 8 hours, and then we drive home another half hour, and then we sit down again, watching Netflix. Like our time spent sitting down is chaotic. And if you can just make a little bit more of an effort, even if that's going onto your phone and saying, remind me to get up and walk around the office every hour on the hour, the difference that's going to make to your activity levels.
Going back to that 1%, man.
1% all the time. So they be two non-negotiables. My last one then is get 4 to 5 activity sessions a week.
Yeah.
And I classify an activity session as 20 minutes. And that's not a lot. You know, like, I mean, I often tell clients about if they've treadmill at home or if they go to the gym, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Like, watch a Netflix series on the treadmill, you know, or on the spinning bike.
Deadly.
Because you're going to be absorbed in whatever
Exactly.
it is, you know,
Yeah.
Black Mirror or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, the Kardashians, you know.
Yeah, deadly. Man, I love that effect. Or even something as simple as if you take a lot of work calls, or you typically respond to your email or WhatsApp, why not just do it while you're walking? Yeah. As you said, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
I bet you do that as well.
Oh, amen, man. Yeah, absolutely. It's how I structure my day though. It's like I do get the 10K in.
Yeah.
Like that's just so you speak about targets. Everyone has different targets, and for me, that's a realistic and achievable one for me. But I'll do that. I'll pair that with an activity. Calling a friend, calling a family member. Why not do it while you're walking?
Yeah.
You know, or you have some emails to take care of.
Yeah.
Do it after your workout on the treadmill. It's been 5 or 10 minutes. It is that compounded effect.
For sure.
I think something you touched on there though, which I really, really love, is make the barrier of entry so easy.
Yeah.
And in James Clear's book, which he spoke about before, he mentioned the story of the guy who lost over 100 pounds inside 9 months.
Yeah.
And instead of doing 30-minute workout a week,
yeah.
he just asked him to do 6 5-minute workouts.
Yeah.
Now, did he build a lot of muscle in those 5 minutes? Probably not. But what did he do? He mastered, as you said, the art of showing up, building consistency, building it into the lifestyle. Cillian, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like I use that tactic from the book with my clients today.
Yeah.
They're struggling. They're like, I can't get a workout in. Cool, do 5 minutes, and they're like, but that's nothing. And you're like, exactly. And if you can do 5 minutes, we can bring it up to 6, and up to 7, and up to 8. So it is that, like you said, breaking that barrier of entry, but make that entry level so easy that you're going to pass with the flying colours. And that's the problem. So many people go into their fat loss phase, cold turkey, 20,000 steps, 5 sessions in a week, when they haven't even done 1 20-minute session in a month, never mind a week. You know, so don't set the bar so high. Build up to that level. Yeah, that's what I would say.
What if on the other end though, there's someone who fell off, which I don't like the phrase, fell off the wagon, but now they have an event or they have something and they're a bit time constrained. Would you recommend a similar approach, or does it need to be? Do we need to encounter that element of time and factor that?
Yeah,
like it's a hard one.
It is a difficult one.
Yeah.
If I get someone who comes to me and they're like, I need to do X amount in 10 weeks because I'm going on holiday, for instance, or whatever. But is the key word here. I have this on this weekend, that on next weekend, that on next weekend. I genuinely do turn around. Take your battles. Choose your battles, I say. And I'll always say to them, we've got to have an element of realism here. And, you know, if you want to achieve that, you can attend the events, you can enjoy them, but you're going to have to choose when you're going to have a few drinks and when you're going to be the designated driver. That sort of approach. So most people don't like it because it's not what they want to hear. They want to hear, yeah, no worries. We'll get you shredded beach ball abs in 10 weeks and you can still go out every night. Let's call it straight, but you have to choose your battles and be a bit smarter. Yeah, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what would you say are some of the most common challenges that people, or even that your clients might encounter before they seek some medical care?
For me, like a lot of my clients will be very busy, job orientated, always on the go. So there could be a lot of like time for wine and dines. There could be traveling's a big one for a lot of my clients. So it's trying to fit and create an approach that's going to work for them, will help keep them on track. Yeah. So that's something that we would work on quite a lot with, is find out their patterns, their routines, their schedules in advance. And we essentially create up a plan B. So when the client knows they're going away, they implement that plan straight away. But it's also having the conversation with them at the start that, look, you need to follow this plan. Yeah. Because if you go off track, you are not going to get the rest of it. And I think that's you have to
You
be
have to
clear,
lay down the expectations.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you probably know it yourself, like with some coaches, it's like, yeah, we can get you that result no matter what. And that builds the client up thinking, great, I can still continue my old behavioral patterns and habits and get the results. And it's not that simple.
But if you do want those results, it's just you really gotta delay the time frame.
For sure.
And like something I spoke about before in the podcast is, look, Cillian, you know yourself, being in a calorie deficit, it's hard. Like you're not giving your body enough fuel that it needs or that it wants. So my goal when I'm in a deficit is I want to get out of that as quickly and sustainably as possible.
Yeah.
And I feel for some people, if they actually just commit, block out 12 weeks, block out 16 weeks, maybe have a weekend or two here and there where, okay, you go back to maintenance. But I feel sometimes people get frustrated because they try too much of the balanced approach.
Yeah.
Without ever actually fully committing.
Yeah. Oh, I completely agree with this. And I'm like you, I love food. So
Yeah.
get in and get out of that phase, And I think
because I saw you shredded down for a photo shoot. I was like, when I saw your jawline, you can just tell, you can even see the people in the gym was like, that poor guy, he is going through a freaking, he's probably on 1,500 calories. So
yeah,
you can tell when you're in the deep end of the diet phase.
for sure. And most people aren't going to get to that level.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
for sure.
Well, I completely agree with you. Like, get in and stop treating the fat loss phase as your forever phase.
Yeah.
And that's what people do. And this is where that element of, I'm going to balance this out and that out, and just endure a little bit of hard time or a little bit of hardship for that, that long-term gain.
Yes.
And I always use a mortgage analogy. And well, number one, we can never get a mortgage analogy at the moment, the way things are going.
Yeah.
But typically what they look for in a mortgage is the last 6 months of your bank accounts.
Yeah.
And that needs to be tweaked. You need to be showing your saving, your amounts, and you'll always see, like, say, first time buyers couples, like the first time couple buying a house. They track all their expenditure, or spend like their expenses. They'll take sacrifices, so they'll stop the nights out or they'll stop the stupid buying of things for the 6 months. Because the trade-off is, if we do this now and endure this little bit of hardship, we get the house of our dreams for the rest of our life. And that's what I tell people: endure a little bit of hardship, a little bit of sacrifice, and then reap the rewards on the
As you said, though, it's so freaking easy nowadays to be soft. I even see it in myself. It's like we're addicted to immediacy. You don't want to read the book. Well, Audible has a 15-minute summary, so you don't even need to read it. You don't want to do your shopping today. InstaShop delivers straight to the door and right back home to the gym. 8 bags of food outside the front door there. All I have to do is unpack it. It's never been easier.
Yeah.
But one thing, as you said, you can't hire someone to do your push-ups. And that's the hard thing with fitness. It's like you have the food, you benefit now, but you don't feel good later on. Have the cigarette, have the alcohol, temporary relief. Whereas with push-ups, you're not going to see your chest chiseled.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the six-pack now, but down the line. Down the line is crazy.
For sure. And I think it was quite an interesting thing. I was reading up on this as well. And it's one thing I was talking about to my clients is, first thing in the morning, do something that's going to make you suffer.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds a bit messed up, right?
I like it.
But bear with me, right? And I think this is where you get a lot of people who come, and you've probably seen the cold water pair.
I was about to say ice baths.
Ice baths.
Yeah.
Everyone gets into them. And I can actually see why they do it.
Yeah.
Because if it's the first thing you do, that hardship of, especially over in Ireland, it's already freezing cold, and you're getting into this ice bucket for 2, 3, 4 minutes. Everything else for the rest of the
day
gets easier, or it's going to be a lot easier. Or if there's something that does come up, you say, "Hey, I got into an ice bath at 6 o'clock this morning. I can do this task."
Yeah,
So a little bit of suffering really just goes on.
It's the Mark Twain quote: "Eat a frog first thing in the morning, the rest of the day gets easier." And if you have 2 frogs to eat the biggest one first.
Yeah.
What's your version of that? So good.
But actually, eat the frog. Eat the frog is the quote that we always say.
Yeah.
But I like the actual quote that I'm saying now to people is suffer daily.
Yeah.
It's a bit kind of attention grabbing. Like, why are you telling me to suffer daily? You know, but suffer first thing in the morning and do that daily
Yeah.
because you will reap the rewards from it.
And what's your version of that in your routine?
For me, it's I get up quite early in the morning, but I try to get up even a half hour earlier than what I need to be up at.
What time is that?
For me, it's getting down to 6 now, so that's still it's.
That's it. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I always try to get minimum 4,000 steps done every single day before I do anything else. So it's getting up early, go out and do those steps. Whatever the weather is, go up and go and do it. And
Yeah.
look, people might be looking at me like, well, you're out in Dubai, it's 30 degrees at that time. Yes, but
Just capture yourself now. Before you say it must be nice, like it's still got to fit into your lifestyle. That triggers me. Go ahead. Sorry, kidding.
no, of course, and that was my lifestyle before I moved over here. So even when I was living in my mum's house or my dad's house,
100%.
and it was raining, the jacket came on.
100%.
There's no such thing as bad weather; it's bad clothes,
Yeah.
you know. And it's that case of do a little bit of suffering in the morning, do something hard,
Yeah.
get up, start your day the right way, and then everything comes to touch easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, I think there's so much power in that morning walk. It's, I don't know. It's probably my favorite part of the day. Like I love sunrise. We get that morning coffee, not immediately after waking, but just being outdoors. You just you get a new perspective. And tell me this, Cillian, you're really into like self-development, personal development, exercise, nutrition. Do you do any form of like mindfulness, meditation,
Yes, I always use like
journaling?
in terms of journaling, I wouldn't do it daily. That wouldn't be my thing.
Yeah.
I do kind of two things, and it goes back to that R&R on a Sunday. That for me, sitting down, grabbing a coffee, getting into a bit of a like a flow state.
Yeah.
So I'll enjoy the coffee first. I usually go to like a busy area so people watch and just tune out. And that's when I do the journaling, like, and I assess the week. You know, what went good, what went bad, worried about things, how can I improve the situation, setting out some targets for the week. And then a daily thing for me is I don't do affirmations. I hate the word affirmations.
Yeah.
I do declarations. So there's a key difference. And I think in affirmation, you go back to that soft mentality is like, oh, I affirm to myself that today is going to be a good day, or, you know, I'm going to be a positive person or whatever it may be. You're putting out a bit of a wishy-washy statement. You're putting out these words like, I hope, I want.
Yeah.
And that's where a declaration comes into place. It's like, it's not I hope or I want, I am, I will. And for me, it's if it's a fitness goal, I pretend I've already hit that goal. Like I am 10 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
It's a declaration. It's not an affirmation or
Trading your shoulds for musts.
Yeah, 100%.
Deadly. Yeah, deadly. Man, this has been really, really insightful so far. And just maybe going back to training, go back to nutrition, Cillian, if we're to kind of tie this back, what would you say are, even if you just speak more about the strength side, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people make maybe in the gym?
I think just going in and not really knowing what they're doing. And I think it's that there's an element of self-consciousness as well. I get that, like, you know, you
can be intimidating.
For sure. And even going into the gym now, like I know pot calling kettle black, but there's tripods everywhere. It is one of those things that you have to kind of navigate through, and it's quite intimidating. So, and I think people are nearly afraid to reach out, but you go back to that situation of if you had money problems, what would you do? You'd get a financial advisor to help you and advise with your finances. Or if you wanted to learn Spanish, what would you do? You'd get Spanish lessons. So if you're not confident in the gym, you don't know what you need to do, what should you do? Go get a PT, hire a coach, you know. You can pay in money or you can pay in time. For sure, and like that's not me promoting myself or you it's just the way it is. And you can even go in and just ask the local PT there, look, show me some basic exercises, show me how I can create simple structure. And I know you say this a lot on your content about people don't need to follow a bodybuilding split. You're right. Like 90% of the population need to just do a few exercises, like a hip and push and pull core movements, some sort of a lateral movement. That's going to complement the life. So not let's go 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 rep range. Like if it's your goal, of course. But for most people, they just want to drop a few pounds and feel and look a bit better. Definitely.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably the biggest one. On top of probably rotating exercises too frequently. So either not having a plan and not knowing what you're doing, or just checking out your phone and Instagram and deciding there and then what you're going to train. As you said, if you want to get better at Spanish, you have to practice it.
Yeah.
Just like in the gym, if you want to get better at squats, you have to freaking squat. Like sometimes we try to overcomplicate something. It's actually not that difficult when you break it down.
For sure, for sure. It's like what's Chris Bumstead doing? But it is that, and I think that's. I was actually only saying that to a client of mine. He just came on board. We'd spent about 4 weeks nailing down some basic movements, some movement patterns, and all of a sudden he's like, "Can we change the workouts up?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And I said to him, I was like, "You just nailed this down. What happens if I give you a completely new split?
Yeah.
You're going to go back to spending a few weeks trying to learn these new
Yeah.
movements, etc., etc." So it's nailing down.
It's a hard balance.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Nailing down something that works, do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, I guess for the likes of us, Cillian was actually so on my morning walk today. I was planning out some content which I like to do, and one of them was like, how often should you change up your workout split?
Yeah.
And it's a hard one because before you start talking about the best plan on paper, as you know yourself, adherence and sustainability is the most important thing. So it's kind of like as coaches, we have a hard job to fit away. We want to get our clients the best possible results, but we also want them to enjoy the gym as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's no hard rule. I typically like to go 4 to 6 weeks, but when you rotate, as you know, well, this is how I operate. If you're rotating, I'll limit the amount of rotation for the compounds. As you were saying, your squat, your bench, your deadlift, like you might do different variations of those. But then to be fair, if you want to do a dumbbell bicep curl or a cable bicep curl, it's not going to make much of a difference.
No, for sure.
So it's a hard line.
Yeah.
Do you ever get that as well? I'm sure with your clients you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're the same, you know. It depends on the client that you get in. Like the client who just wants to move a little bit more, drop a few pounds, 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Change a few things up.
Yeah.
Great. If someone's coming in and like, look, I only want to grow my arms, I want to grow my chest, whatever it may be, then you have to get a little bit more specific. Yeah. You know, so I think you have to let it complement your life as well. And this is the communication between the coach and clients is
for sure
essential.
Yeah.
You know, like if you have a client following a plan for 6 weeks and they are just not enjoying it, but you're insisting because
this is how I do things.
Yeah.
The Iron Fist.
Yeah, you know, or this is the guidelines prescribed for optimal hypertrophy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Susan or Sandra or Tom or Dave don't care about the guidelines. You know what I mean?
They just want to look better naked.
Yeah, exactly. Or they just want to move for 45 minutes. You know, so when you're dealing with that level or that population, rotation's key as well, you know?
Yeah. It's a hard, like when I did my bodybuilding and when I was working with my coach, I'm pretty sure it was the same plan for the full 12 weeks, but it was working.
Yeah.
And sometimes people like, they almost like, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
Like when you're not lowering my calories up and more, like, Michael, you're losing weight, you're losing 0.5, 0.6. We don't need to change anything, you just need to keep it going. So it is that hard balance.
It is for sure. And I think it's funny when I get a client.
We sometimes look for problems that aren't even there.
Like, and I actually had a client, Sean, he just smashes it, and he is so consistent. And at the end of one of his check-ins, he's like, "Do we need to be doing anything else?
Am I doing something wrong?"
Yeah. No, don't change anything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, people that I coach, I don't have like the people that I don't have to coach the most are the people that get the best results.
Yeah.
They just need that touching point. They just need that check and that accountability.
Yeah.
But everything else stays the same, and if it stays the same, it's a good thing.
Do you know what I think it is? And I'm not sure what I think a lot of it is just because I need this myself. Reassurance.
Yeah.
Like just reassurance that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Like one of my clients messaged me yesterday, and for the first time he's been dropping maybe 0.5, 0.6 kilos a week, which is a nice amount. But for the first time, two consistent weeks, scale didn't change. 1 week it's like, yeah, we'll reassess next week. 2 weeks, okay. might run into a bit of a plateau. Had to lower his calories slightly. And he just said the first 4 days he found challenging.
Yeah.
Is this normal? And I was like, oh, Michael, anytime my calories change, I'm sure you're the same for the photo shoot for the show. Man, those first few days are tough.
Yeah,
So it's just being aware and understanding that is part of the process too.
for sure. And it is, and that's why you need to do the small changes. And stuff,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
coming into and out of the dieting phase, probably more importantly, coming out of it.
Oh man,
You know, like that rebounds, that potential rebounds to just blow all those results.
I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah, for
Talk
sure.
to us about that, because your body is so receptive to extra food, extra calories when you are in that extreme dieting phase. How do you manage that? How do you coach your clients through that?
That I always say, like, that's where you actually need to be the
More
most
discipline.
supportive.
Yeah.
Discipline and supportive to
Yeah.
your client, because it's nearly a mental thing that I've now finished the dieting phase, I can automatically go back to eating everything I want. And you can't, like you said there, you're so much more receptive, and like, you know, ghrelin levels are extremely high,
Yes.
leptin is extremely low. Like, you have to really coach the person through it. And I always say, I build them up even 3 or 4, like, it's all about pre-framing it. So 3 or 4 weeks before time is finishing up, I will have them nearly mentally drilled into their heads that we have 3 or 4 important weeks coming up after that. Take your few days off, enjoy the foods.
Yeah.
But there's 3 or 4 weeks where I need you to be
More discipline. Yeah.
110%.
Absolutely.
And the trade-off goes back to the mortgage analogy.
Yeah.
If you build the calories up, you can hold and maintain the results you've got.
Yeah.
More flexibility, more calories. But if you go on a rampage for a week or two,
Yeah.
you're going to do all your work.
Man, it's not talked about enough. I even spoke to a guy recently getting married, and he wants obviously get in good shape for it. But I was just telling him, we don't want to be in a deficit like 2 weeks or even a week before the week of the wedding. Because when you think about it, imagine you're in a dieting phase, you're in a calorie deficit, and then all of a sudden your calories triple or quadruple in the space of a very short period of time. I encountered this myself after my bodybuilding show. One off-plan meal that evening. All right, I went to a buffet, man. There was desserts, there was 3 or 4 plates of food, but just once. The next day, then eating out, but it was like sweet potato, it was grilled steak, it was all good foods. Tuesday, back home, following the diet. Went on the scales for the first time the following Friday, the show being the Sunday.
Yeah.
4 kilograms from one off plan, like just one off plan meal, eating foods I wasn't accustomed to. Like, it was even a new level of eye-opening thing for me to like, whoa, I need to scale things back.
Yeah, for sure. And
that's the danger.
It is. And I think that's an important part as well. Like, when you've got to be very mindful and understand the weighing scales as well, because to you probably know, right, replenishing glycogen storage, just sheer food volume,
stress, even
stress and salt, you know, sodium absorption. But let's say you have Tom who's done 12 weeks and he doesn't know anything about weighing scales, and he's up 4 kilo, and he's like, oh my god, that's 4 kilo of fat. What am I going to do? So understanding that isn't just pure body fat,
exactly,
is an important concept.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. And then I feel a lot of people go 2 ways with this. It's like, I've already gained 4 kilos. I may as well gain another 4.
Yeah.
Where's the number for Domino's in the industry? So it's just not having that order of mentality.
For sure. I think it just to finish it on there, Adrian, is Mark Manson, you know, he says a lot about the worst thing under the sun to happen to you, something that you never want to happen. And instead of moping about it or going into that self-sabotage mode of, heck, if that's happened, I'm going to just double down this, you have to draw the line and accept responsibility. So when something like that happens, or if I have a client who overeats for 2 days in a row, whatever it is, I'll always say to them, okay, firstly, say how much you enjoyed the event, create that good mentality around food. Yeah, for sure. And then secondly, now draw the line. Say, okay, I've had the fun time, I enjoyed myself, I overindulged, it was great, but now I accept the responsibility that I overindulged, and now I need to get back on track. You know, and that's an important concept. But
yeah, I like that reframing. Cillian, man, this has been awesome. It's been awesome, man. Before we wrap it up, Cillian, we always like to do a final 5 rapid fire. So if you don't mind, Cillian, when you hear the word successful, who is the first person that comes to mind?
Alex Ferguson.
You didn't even think
He's my idol.
God, man, it's hard to believe 10 years.
You know,
10 years since you retired. What is one you have that you've implemented the last year?
one habit,
Yeah.
sleep, getting a sleep routine 1 hour before I go to bed. So for me, it's well, I limit my caffeine quite a lot now, 10 hours a week before.
Yeah.
But it's getting the blue light blocking glasses on, trying to limit technology, doubling down on zinc magnesium intake,
So,
serotonin rich foods. Because sleep is the mecca for health, I think.
amen, brother. Amen. I really like that. What's one thing that you believe that most people think is crazy?
You do need to suffer a bit if you want results. I think a lot of people like that mentality of there has to be discipline, consistency,
Yeah.
and a bit of suffering. People don't like to hear that.
Yeah. Tell them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear.
Exactly.
If you could give your younger self some advice, Cillian, before you started, what would you say? What would you tell Cillian McCahey 5 years ago?
5 years ago, I would have told them, don't always be so hard on yourself. I think younger Kenny was always like, be satisfied but never proud of yourself. And it's a case of no, be proud of what you've achieved, but keep the hunger there. But so
That's a hard balance, man.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Being satisfied, but yet being driven.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Cillian, what's one question? Final question. What is one question you wish people asked you more?
Oh, you've got me there. I was able to tell them. One question I'd like people to ask me more about. I don't know. One question. Well, what my name is? People always call me Keane or Connor.
Yeah.
I even had a client for a few weeks and it was like, "Hey Connor," I'm like, "Nope, it's
Yeah,
Cillian."
that's a pet peeve, bro.
Yeah.
Cillian McMahon.
Okay.
Maybe pronounce it in Galway.
For sure.
It's
It's
Cillian
Galway meets in India. That's
Okay.
yeah.
Man, this has been awesome.
Appreciate
It's been awesome.
Thank you.
Killian, before we go, because this is the Lifestyle Lecture show, final question I'll ask. Actually, first of all, where can people learn a bit more about you and what you have to offer?
For sure. I'm on TikTok, your usual Facebook, Instagram, at CMC Fitness, so CMCC Fitness.
Perfect. Killian, I'll post that link in the show notes for your IG, everyone. If you want to check out, definitely give him a follow.
Cheers.
Drop him a follow.
Appreciate it.
And Killian, because this is the Lifestyle Lecture show, what is your definition of living a successful lifestyle?
It's a balance of good work ethic, good health, good relationships, and open communication. I'll leave it there at that. Thank you.
Cillian McCahey.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That's it.
Great show. Cillian, thanks so much for hopping on.
Cheers.
It's been amazing, bro.
Appreciate it.